Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to another crazy Blitz game. I, your fearless leader, am playing with the white pieces. So, start out with a modern defense. So, I like to play bishop to e3. I didn't know it was the best move playable, but okay. Works for me, I always liked it, so I feel good. So basically now it's looking more like a Samish King's Indian. Computer did not like my c4. I thought, I'll take the space, etc., etc. I'm defending b2 from his queen. So it's my dad's advice. What is he trying to do with queen to b6? He's trying to take queen takes b2, so he defended. Computer said c3 is the best. Can't argue with the computer. But I wanted my knight on c3, like so. So, it's just one of those things that he's goofing around, I'm goofing around back. But he's making multiple moves with his knight and queen while I'm moving new pieces to good squares. So, should not be a shocker that the computer thought this was better for white. And you see this bar on the left side by the queen. Even is right here where the arrow is, so I'm doing fine. Now, obviously, when you're playing the game, I don't have this bar. So this is, you play the game like you play a regular tournament game. You got to use your spidey senses, baby. H6, not really a very good move, because down the road as the game progresses, it becomes a liability that prevents black from castling, because he plays like knight to f6 at some point, and if he castles, you just go bishop rips h6, and you just drop the pawn for nothing. So, at this point, white has developed every piece except one. Black has developed three pieces. The bar gets bigger. G5. I'm like, bro, really? I mean, it does address the potential problem of h6, but potentially creates a new target. Black is not castled, his king is not really secure, so basically he's out there asking for it. Really, queen to b6. Now that is a bad move. I don't have to play d5, okay? The sword of Damocles on e3 is sitting there, and he's going to have to deal with that every move until I decide to move that d pawn. So psychologically, queen to b6 is a terrible move. Regardless, even if it was a decent move, psychologically it's bad. See, now here's where the g5 pawn becomes a target already. But, on the other hand, f takes g5, h takes g5, and now his rook is developed. So I'm really not going to take that. But, he has to defend it as if I am going to take it. G4, awesome. That doesn't bother me at all. I thought, you know what? He's got no development to speak of. Well, not no development. I've developed every piece. So, I have 7 pieces developed. He's got 3. It's time to, press forward. E5. Seemed like the right move. I didn't know it was the best move, but that's what it seemed like. So, he's now got problems coming up, because once again, on e3 sits the sword of Damocles. There it is, the sword. d5. Now watch what I'm doing here. I don't know what the computer says about it. I didn't get this far. So now, e6. This is not about anything other than breaking up his position, sacrificing a pawn, f takes e, etc. I'm like, okay, I'll sacrifice a pawn. I don't care. I'm not worried about material equality. I'm trying to open up lines for my vastly superior development. So e6 is the natural move, just trying to make things uncool for him. He plays the best move. I mean, he loses the bishop, or he goes bishop to c8 would be terrible. So here's the thing. What do you do now? Perhaps you might want to pause the video and be right back. Okay, well, this is what I came up with. Basic stuff. Bishop to g6 check. He's not going to castle today. At least not in this game. So he's pretty much forced to play king to d8, which is good. I thought that was his best move as well. But my thinking is that I'm going to try and, continue the pressure in the center. Knight to d4 was another good move. No question. Because if white played knight to d4 instead of the bishop move, if he goes c5, then we could play, if we want to, knight takes e6, or what do you call it? Knight to b5. Just depends what's going on. Or if he played e5, we could go again, knight to f5 or knight to e6. But I wanted the bishop there because I thought he should have taken the pawn, and I was correct. E takes d5 was the move he should have played. And at that point, E takes d5, E takes d5, and knight d4 combined with bishop to e6 is going to be nasty. So, knight f6. It's about time you develop something, but, the computer says this isn't the greatest move. He needed to take the pawn. He didn't take the pawn, so hammer time, baby. It's hammer time. Bishop to e8. Clearly, he needs to challenge my f7 bishop. I think that's fairly obvious. So I couldn't let him take bishop takes f7 and then have that f pawn for rook to f8 to just eat for free. So I thought I'll take the pawn and then play f5 to buy my nasty e6 pawn, because his rooks are worthless. They're absolutely worthless at this point. If I had anything to really do and sacrifice, I'd have gone for it, because he has two rooks that are literally doing nothing. But, you do the best you can. But look, I mean, my bar has just been above 50% the whole game for the most part, and I'm just crushing this guy. Now, materially speaking, we're dead even, aren't we? 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're dead even materially. 2 knights and a bishop. 2 rooks each side. Material's dead even, but he's getting squashed positionally. H5. Oh, okay. It's like, hey. Gee, I thought knight f4 was the best move, more so than b4. It's just annoying. But I guess his knight to c5 is it's a potential threat. But I would, I don't know. I would just play b4. That knight's not going. That knight, well, I guess a knight can stay there. Knight can go to e4 after b4. So this is just h4 is almost a desperation move. No matter what, he can't do anything. g3, I play h3. He plays h3, I play g3. He's not going to open up lines for his rook. It ain't happening. Not today. So, again, knight to g6, not as good as b4 somehow. I don't know. I did check on this game. I had like somehow I had like an 88% rating on this game as far as how good the moves were. I was pretty shocked, and my opponent was 76 or something like that percent, something like that. So now he's got to move his rook. Hooray! Rook to h7. Rook to h5 does seem slightly better. I don't know that it's necessarily useful. Just keeps an eye on the f5 pawn rather than just sitting on h7. But on h7 is not really a target, so in that context, you know, he doesn't have to worry about the sword of Damocles over here at e3. So finally, I got around to playing b4, and the computer, of course, thought that was the best move. It's been thinking that for like 4 or 5 moves in a row now. See, this is the simple thing. When a guy is pressing pawns towards your king, 2 on 2, 3 on 3, whatever. But let's just say 2 on 2. The only way that this helps him is if there's something that where this essentially he can pawn sacrifice by forking, say, a piece like a knight or a bishop or a rook here with g3. You take, he takes, and then whether you take or not is irrelevant because he's achieved his goal of opening the lines against your king. But when there's nothing here on f2, there's no way he can open this. Unless he was like pushing h3, you play g3, and he had like a bishop or a knight that goes, blank, captures g3. So, but that didn't happen. h3 is the obvious move, which is and it's also the best move. So this is one of those things you learn by watching good players. At least I did when I was playing in those tournaments at the University of Houston. I'd watch the good players in the top section. Hey, I mean, these guys are all good players, man. I can get free lessons by watching them. b6, not bad, but look at his position. He has technically developed 5 pieces out of 6. If you want to call it rook h7 and bishop g7, well, bishop g7 is not really that bad, but it's not a good development. Knight a6, not a good development. So his queen and his knight are well-developed pieces, but everything else is kind of, no good. So, b5, baby. If he takes, my idea was to play, knight takes b5. To, abuse his queen. He chose not to exchange, which I'm like, fine, dude, like whatever. Here, I'll take this, and you can take it. And now I'm going to play. What move do you think I'm going to play here? You might want to pause the video, and we'll be right back. Okay, if you pause the video, we're back. So I went for knight d5. Shocking to me. I didn't know it was the best move. It looks like the right move. This is my spidey senses going, I dare him to play knight takes knight, which is the knight his best developed piece, okay? So it would be a mistake. Conceptually, it's a mistake for black to play knight takes d5, c takes d5, and lines are opening somewhat with white in control already, rook to c1. That killer move that I played way back when I played a3 and he played queen a5 to pin the pawn to the rook was like, hey, this rook belongs on c1, and then ta-da, there it is. So that was one of those. Generally speaking, that rook will go to c1 when you have that c4 pawn. So it should not be a shocker to you to see that. We'll go back in the beginning and then look at that again. So, I mean, I can take his knight at will, but I don't want to take it. Play bishop to g5, because now I'm really threatening to take it. The sword of Damocles is now moved from e3 to g5. Good move. It's actually a very good move. looks dangerous, to be honest with you. And so I think I just played queen f4. Yes. Wow, I did not know that was the best move. Again, it's the move that looked like the right move. I have to defend the bishop, obviously, right? But if he doesn't take it, f6 is coming. Check. Really? Okay. So I went back there. I did not like king h1. I didn't like king h1 because he's got knight f2. Rook takes knight is forced. Well, maybe not forced. It looks forced to me, actually. Yeah, it's forced because he's threatening a Philidor mate. So knight f2, if I'm on h1, this is what it is. If I go here, he does this. I can't do this. Double check, and he's got me right there. You see it. I'm dead. Well, not dead, but it's going to cost me a queen for his knight. All right, he's going to go here. Well, whatever. Doesn't matter. I see this a mile. I didn't like this at all. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to play queen e3. And no big deal. Actually, it is a big deal. He just plays knight takes bishop. Idiot. Oh, well, we both went to sleep on that one. Yeah, so what should I have done here? Good question. Queen to f4 is not the best move. Clearly. Queen to e3 is better. Oh, I guess I should have played knight to e3 when he checks me. So I guess queen to f4 could still be the best move. Knight e3 is the right move. I played the wrong move, queen e3. But he captured wrong, and so, everything is good. Well, now it's just, he's just dust. Okay, this is nothing. This game over, bro. You're just down in exchange for nothing, no compensation at all. And it gets worse. Now I take that. Yeah, this is terrible. He's completely dead. Actually, wow, bishop g5 is the best move? That's a shocker. I was thinking knight takes d6, pawn takes, bishop takes check, getting 2 pawns for the knight. Well, okay, my bishop g5 was better than I thought. I mean, I'm kind of threatening to press these pawns forward. Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, knight check was a great move. I missed it. Knight check, knight takes knight, bishop takes f6, and he is just getting squashed, Ola. I mean, bishop takes h4 was good too. But again, knight takes e7 is a crusher. I didn't see it. I still didn't see it. Man, I'm blind. Hey, Blitz Chess is bad for you. You think I made that video because I was just, wanting to hear the words? I play Blitz Chess games because sometimes we get some interesting games that happen like this one. But the speed of Blitz Chess is just not good. I mean, this is a rook ahead. It doesn't really matter. I can't lose this. Well, I can almost not lose this. So who cares? You ain't doing jack, buddy. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah. Carunch, carunch. F6, carunchy. So it doesn't really matter. He's rook down. White has consolidated his position, and just there's nothing he could do. Queen f8. I mean, f8 equals queen check is double check, so we can't even capture the queen. So how bogus was that? Yeah, queen takes d6 was better. But I've completely got this guy. He's dust. And that's game over. He'll be summarily checkmated by rook f to f7. and then either rook to h7 or rook on f to b7, depending which way he goes. It doesn't matter. But let's go back to the beginning where you see right now. Let's go back and look at the move. Okay, again, king's Indian defense. The computer doesn't like that. I'm like, but there's value behind c4. Okay. He goes there, a3. Get out of my face, little man. No, I ain't gonna do it. I'm like, well, look at this c pawn. With this c pawn here, the odds of this file becoming useful are at least 50%, if not more. So it like rook d1. Well, on d5, he'd just play c5. Okay, so forget it. I like rook c1. Computer, of course, you can't argue with the tactical strength of the computer. But there's value in rook to c1, which turns out, as you saw in the game, it worked out to be really a valuable move. So the computer is probably right. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's probably minusculely better. And it's one of those, you know, you got to go with whatever works for you. If you're a rook c1 guy, play rook c1. If you're a rook d1 guy, play rook d1. But I'm a rook c1 guy. So I felt most comfortable playing rook to c1, so that's what I played. And as we saw, it turned out to be really good. So now b4 was a good move too, but he'd take my a pawn. So it's like, you know, I looked at it and I'm like, I can't do it yet. So let's just, you know, develop your pieces, get them off the back rank, castle your king, and then, you know, get the can opener and go after this guy. You know, just go right after him. And this is the, you know, the thing that can happen in this kind of position is I play d5 with the, you know, the intent was me to play d5 and e6 because I have the sword of Damocles is sitting there on e3. And just slightly inferior moves, not bad moves, but moves that just are not crisply onto what needs to be done. The position for black can easily erode, which is exactly what happens. These kind of positions are different in that, you know, your position can erode to a bad position with inferior moves because his development is just garbage. That's French for garbage. Like now, you know, he's completely asking for it. Now he's trying to castle. You know, we've got to give him credit for trying to castle. But you're not castling. So, you know, that's the move that we expected, queen c7. That's one of the squares that queen belongs on, potentially. So, e6, pawn sacrifice, because I was looking at this. Hey, you take this, I take it, you take it, let's rock, okay? You're not castling. If I have to trade bishops, I'll trade bishops. But this homeboy is not castling, okay, anytime soon. So, if he does this, we do this, he comes in here, and now we're going to come after him. How specifically, I don't know, but we'll figure out something. Could be knight e4, could be, you know, could play b4 to keep the knight out of there, and then play stuff like knight g3, and maybe knight f5 or knight to h5, whatever it is. But he's not castling. You see my position here, the computer says, is very good. He just doesn't have a lot of mobility. So realistically, now we have the benefit of seeing the computer's recommendation of b4. So I would just play probably b4 here. You know, his knight is just really in terror. Both knights are horrible. But at least the f6 knight is, I mean, the knight on fg8 will go to f6 and be in a good position. But, nasty stuff is threatening to happen with, knight to d4, stuff like that. So it's one of those things, it was just a pretty interesting game, one of those really odd closed positions where he plays a passive, defense, the modern defense / King's Indian, kind of a hybrid between the two. So I wanted you guys to get, have a look at this and see what was happening, just to have something to compare it against from your own observations. So like the video, share it with your buddies, but don't tell your enemies because they'll use my lessons against you. Comment, tell me what you thought about that. Subscribe, you'll get more of these awesome, game analysis. Might help you in the future. But these teach you things that you need to know, even if you specifically don't play this opening or run into this opening on your own, whatever. Good knowledge is always good knowledge. So you guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.